This is Nihilistic Snake, the user we are covering today. You may be wondering who this guy is and what exactly we are covering from him. Well, for starters, he's a commentator. He's not a commentator looked fondly upon, but he's a commentator. If you want to delve deeper, he used to be known as Slothboy494. However, in May of last year, he decided to change his username because he wanted to start anew, considering he was getting lots of backlash at the time, and made his first commentary under the new username on a guy named Rushv, some chuckle nut who advocated for legalizing rape. And I thought that his commentary was possibly the worst commentary ever made. How he fucked up a commentary on someone unintentionally supporting rape, I'll never know, but you can sure check out me trying to understand what went wrong on the YouTube Dude 101 archive channel. Snake didn't like my video because I called him an SJW and parroted a lot of points from a podcast that covered him. I thought that reasoning was stupid because he was discrediting me for one tiny potshot, and I did bring in new points, such as using not only one, but all of his sources against him, something no other commentator who covered his video did.
I would have given you the benefit of the doubt if you didn't continue on by saying that rape culture is not an epidemic for men when, judging by those statistics and possibilities and how generalizing you're being right now to the entire gender of male for this crime, one can argue otherwise. All three of your sources. All three of them, and they went against your argument. That's a fucking record.
And from there, it's just been one big rivalry. Snake didn't take my criticism, so he kept making shitty videos with the occasional one that's tolerable. I started yelling at him over how awful his videos were, and he ranted about me on Twitter as a response. I then trolled him on Twitter by retweeting a couple of posts that made him look stupid, and it only took him 6 months to block me. He started raving on about how I'm obsessed with him, how another commentary I was gonna make on him would most likely suck, and how happy he was that I was venting about shit that was happening to me IRL. I also started ranting on how he wanted people to give moments to him rather than him earning them, how he was a horrible piece of shit that runs on ad hominem, and how he wouldn't listen to criticism from people he disliked and never took criticism whenever he did listen. Now, whether he was right and I was wrong or he was wrong and I was right is something I'll let you decide for yourself. Point is, now you know who we're covering today. Except you don't, because he's not the only person I'm covering today. Psych. Yeah, this is a commentary section. Strider, a countdown maker, is at the 0th degree doing a countdown. Kablam Bandicoot, another infamous commentator I've covered before, is at degree number 1 commentating on Strider. That Kid Douglas, a ranter, is at degree number 2 commentating on Kablam. Snake is at degree number 3 commentating on Douglas, and I'm at degree number 4 commentating on all of you fuckers. Nobody is safe today, so let's go.
So a public enemy, a redneck, and a black guy go to a party. And someone died. Totes original idea, brah.
So an Abomination, a Mexican, and a low-quality JPEG go out for dinner. And charges were pressed that day. That's it.
Snake, is ripping off Ryan just your shtick now? Because considering this and the ending skit to your commentary on some guy 827, I really wouldn't doubt it. Glad to see you still have a shitty intro that drags on for way too long and has clips that are lazily put together, considering some match up with the music and some don't. At least you're not using Movie Maker anymore. That's not saying much. Actually, that makes it worse. Now you have no excuse for this shit.
Yeah, this incoherent montage intro is giving me several forms of blood cancer. Please change it to something that won't drive me to suicide, okay? Okay.
How is this intro incoherent? Would you mind explaining yourself like how I did with your intro? Or is explaining yourself just too hard for you?
Hello everybody and welcome back to another episode of Young Hero Rants. Today we're going to cover Weston Sharpstein, aka Kablam Bandicoot 64. Now yes, I know his last name is technically pronounced Sharpenstein, but I intentionally mispronounced it because let's be honest, somebody getting Kablam's last name wrong should be the least of his worries.
Wait, so you're mispronouncing his last name intentionally so you can annoy him, yet continue to say that it's something not worth caring about? Yeah. Question. Why did you even do it?
Oh my god, are you dense? That Kid Douglas did that to make a potshot because the last time he did a video on KB, Douglas got scoffed at by Kablam for that exact reason. Even without this context, it's obvious that's what Douglas was going for because he said it should be the least of Kablam's worries. implying Kablam actually cares. You can analyze statements, right?
I'm not trying to be mean when I say this. I'm not trying to go out of my way to insult him as I say this. But his channel is the most unoriginal, clickbaity, and varietyless channel in the cartoon community on YouTube.
I want you to take note of who is saying this. This is coming from the same guy that was and still is notorious for making videos on Mr. Enter. Now, to be fair, he hasn't made a new video on Mr. Enter in a few months, and he's tried to somewhat diversify his topics. He will forever be stuck with that label, not only because he was totally overly obsessive with his hatred of Mr. Enter, but also because his videos on Mr. Enter weren't particularly good to begin with.
Okay. Let's go for your 2 reasons on why Kablam will forever be remembered as Enter Hater number 25,762.
His videos were bad.
I can debunk this with experience. For those who don't know, about a year ago I made a pretty awful commentary on Comment Jack. It was awful, and I did get put under blast for it. So you know what I did? I improved from it. And because I did, the most that shortcoming amounts to nowadays is a fucking meme rather than a label. People more remember me for my 10th commentary on Nero's Q, my Savdros commentary, and my last commentary on Snake. Fuck. The proof can be found in Doodle's co-op when nobody mentioned my Comment Jack commentary, and instead were giving legit thoughts towards my content or the co-op itself, a majority of which were positive, and of which were negative did not mention my Comment Jack commentary at all. You flat out say that Kablam is trying to improve by diversifying his topics and not mentioning Enter anymore, so who's to say that the same won't happen to him?
He was overly obsessive with him.
Hey, another point I can debunk with experience. You know who is also overly obsessive with Enter to the point where he mentioned him in nearly every commentary he made? Me! And that's not even much of a meme towards me anymore. Plus, it's not a label either, considering I definitely didn't see any comments about that on my co-op with Doodle. Yet.
By the way, YouTube dude, if I end up getting like 5,000 notifications of people saying Mr. Enter should stop being a bot kiss up, it's not gonna end well for you.
Don't worry, people remember me as the guy who went on Snake's ass instead. Speaking of which...
How does that debunk his point? Kablam also mentioned Phantom Strider being clickbaity. While Kablam's videos aren't good, I'll agree that much, at least every video from him is exactly as advertised, a video on the designated topic. Him making a bunch of Mr. Enter videos doesn't mean anything in the grand scheme of things, and if you're gonna claim he's unoriginal, well, give him this, he's made more videos about Mr. Enter than anyone else in the CC, so...
Yep, here we go. Snake, did you ever consider that Douglas was only addressing the part where Kablam said Phantom was lacking a variety? Or did your brain derp out at that moment? I'm guessing the latter, cause literally all you're doing is addressing the counter-argument with arguments that had nothing to do with it. I think that's worse than using a counter-argument already addressed. Furthermore, that's not what Kablam was going for when he said Famstrider was clickbaity. He said clickbaity because Famstrider has flashy thumbnails. Nothing more, nothing less. Get your fucking facts straight.
It is. I mean, all of his videos, top 10 best, top 10 worst, top 10 blah 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 blah, just like Watch Mojo, and they're so clickbaity, and that's why they get views that are often in the thousands or even millions. It's ridiculous, he's unoriginal, and I think his video style needs a major overhaul.
Kablam, that's a terrible analogy, because last I checked, Watch Mojo's lists were decided by fans via polls, and Famstrider's lists are decided by a silly personal opinion, implying that Famstrider isn't trying to appeal to a certain community while Watch Mojo is. And while I'm at it, I want to go on a mini rant here that has nothing to do with this video, but a lot to do with this point. Some of my viewers may have heard this point before from a commentator I covered, Blaze of Arcana.
Also, comparing Strider to Watch Mojo, that's not really a good analogy, especially since Watch Mojo uses their polls to decide the list. Phantom Strider only uses his own personal opinion.
Yeah, guess what? I didn't rip him off. He ripped me off. No, he didn't just rip me off. He ripped me, Biological Reaper, and Mav Station off. The 3 of us were supposed to do a try-out on Kablam's video. However, that got cancelled because it was around the time I deleted my YouTube channel. Somehow Blaze of Arcana got a hold of our script and plagiarized it. Not only that, he actually botched up this point in particular, as he didn't expand upon how Famstrider not relying on fan polls were relevant. So Blaze, I'm going to give you the metaphorical middle finger by taking my point back. Stick it.
So let me get this straight. Just because Phantom Strider does countdowns, that makes him exactly like Watch Mojo? If we're going by that warped logic, everybody in the countdown community is also like Watch Mojo, because a lot of people do countdown videos. People have been making countdown videos since YouTube's inception. The reason why countdowns get a lot of views is because it's a popular genre of videos on YouTube. People are interested in hearing the top 10 best of this and the top 10 worst of that.
I think what Kablam meant was that Phantom's videos are too similar to Watch Mojo's videos, such as things like editing, topics, and presentation. You know what you could have asked for here? An example, something Kablam didn't provide in his video.
That's an almost decent point. Keyword being almost. I get what you were going for when saying how Kablam was talking about Fam's topics, but I did not hear Kablam say one thing about editing, not during this segment or throughout his entire commentary. And what do you mean when you say presentation? Are you talking about the presentation of his points or the clickbaity thumbnails? Just leaving presentation out there is too vague for anyone to get anything out of it. That was the almost decent point. Now for the shit one you made, cause apparently your brain is made out of meat. You say Kablam Bandicoot should have given examples, yet the video he's covering is not an example. He flat out puts it up as an example.
Yeah, he's resorted to doing top 10 worst videos of cartoons by what country they were from. Yeah, did I mention this guy's unoriginal? And he's also idealist and varietyless.
I know this was the case because you left it in your video. Are you even trying?
If countdowns didn't have an audience, if people didn't care about this, they wouldn't watch them and people wouldn't make them. And to criticize Phantom Strider for making countdowns is incredibly hypocritical coming from the likes of you. This is coming from the same guy who made a top 10 list on his favorite albums from his favorite band, They Might Be Giants. Do you even know self-awareness, Kablam? Do you really? Because I honestly can't believe anybody could be this stupid.
Huh. Maybe you should look in the mirror once in a while, Douglas, because you're being pretty fucking stupid right now. You going on and on about how countdowns have an audience is just proving Kablam's point on why Famstrider would do countdowns to appeal to an audience in the first place. And then you're trying to catch Kablam's hypocrisy by saying he did, oh what, one countdown? The key letter in countdowns is S. You need to provide more than one example in this case to prove that Kablam is just like Famstrider, according to the logic you interpreted from him. Otherwise, you fail.
Yes, because an ad hominem that doesn't even work as hypocrisy, given how Phantom Strider is famous for making countdowns and Kablam isn't, totally proves his point wrong, am I right? Do you enjoy being a fuckwit?
Please, shut up. You have no idea what you're talking about. Even if Kablam wasn't famous for making countdowns, he still could have made countdowns. But hey, broken logic totally proves someone wrong, right? This better not become a chain.
And while America definitely has a good portion of the best cartoons of all time, they also have a good portion of the worst cartoons of all time. So,
well, maybe that's because America is a huge country, both geographically and population-wise. So of course you're going to get a little bit of good and a little bit of bad. I don't think it's worth pointing that out because most of us already know that.
Well, no shit, Sherlock. If you suppose that everybody already knows how large the United States is, and thus has its fair share of good and bad cartoons, why the hell did you have to spend the last few minutes pointing out the size and geography of it all? People already know the United States is large, and thus, its rate of good cartoons and bad cartoons is a lot higher. Everybody already knows that. You didn't really need to point out that the United States is large.
Am I imagining this right now? Okay, so Douglas gets onto Kablam's case for pointing out obvious information, when Kablam was getting onto Strider's case for pointing out obvious information. Kablam misses the point that Strider was doing this as a segue while he himself said something obvious as a segue. And Douglas misses the point that Kablam was doing that as a segue while he himself said something obvious as a segue. Did Douglas just make the exact same point Kablam made with the exact same problem in his argument and put it towards Kablam? Can this get any worse?
He was merely explaining how America's size contributes to its large output of good and bad cartoons. Yes, the geography is arbitrary, but the population isn't. There are animators, writers, and directors in all 50 states, and all of them have their own ideas. He was bringing that up to clarify his point, adding that won't kill his video in the long run.
I'm sorry. It's just that all 3 degrees repeated the same information back to back, and not once did one of them think it maybe get redundant. That is just hilarious. Why stop here? We can make a chain off of this right now. The United States is...
That means it's time once again to delve into some of the worst cartoons of all time.
That sentence alone pretty much summed up his entire channel.
So just because he gives his opinion on what he thinks are the worst cartoons of all time, that means his channel is completely based on ripping on bad cartoons and nothing else.
Shh, it was a joke.
Doesn't mean it couldn't have been a shitty one, but whatever.
Are you fucking serious right now? You can't possibly be serious right now. I don't know if you know this, Kablam, but Phantom Strider has plenty of lists on good cartoons. You do know that, right? Maybe if you weren't so lazy and actually bothered to do some fucking research for once, you would know this.
Oh my god, you fucking bug-eyed faggot!
Someone's triggered.
He was referring to when Phantom said worst cartoons of all time, and was saying that Phantom's channel fits that title too! Why do I have to explain a joke to you?
Because it was a shitty one that made no sense. Seriously, how does Phantom Strider fall under worst cartoons of all time? Is Phantom Strider a cartoon now? I mean, yeah, that is what the joke was, and good on you for pointing it out, but I'm not gonna call Douglas a bug-eyed freak for missing that. Look, I get it, you wanted to have a moment where you lash out at him, but this was not the time to do it. This just felt unwarranted.
12-ounce mouse. 12-ounce mouse is probably the laziest side of Adult Swim I've ever seen. There's little to say about this cartoon, and I use that term very loosely.
It's okay not to like 12-ounce mouse, but by definition, it is a cartoon. Sure, the animation may be terrible, although it's terrible on purpose, and I do think you should cut it some slack for that. But to say it's barely a cartoon isn't true. The characters move, and it is moving pictures, therefore, by definition, it is animation, and since it was aired on television, it is by definition a cartoon.
While 12-ounce mouse is still technically a cartoon, it's so far removed from what people actually expect from cartoons in terms of quality, and that's down to the blatantly terrible animation, which is the point Phantom Strider was trying to make.
Except 12-ounce mouse was made using postmodernism, which is a style that often specializes in minimalism. Just because the show isn't animated by DreamWorks doesn't mean the animation is bad. I mean, yeah, the animation itself is bad, but not because, we don't expect that from a televised show.
Snake, you realize at this point you're arguing with Phantom Strider, right? That kid Douglas was just telling Kablam what was actually going on. I mean, either way, your point is fucking shit. Pham and Douglas never said that the animation was shit because it wasn't what they expected. Douglas said it was not what other people expect on TV because of the animation, and Pham right after this elaborates more on his reasoning, which we will get to, and it does not match up with what you said here. GG.
Yes, the animation is blatantly terrible, and it's made to be that way on purpose. I should know. I watched the show as a kid on Teletoon, which is essentially the Canadian equivalent of Cartoon Network, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. But to say he should cut it some slack because it's made to be blatantly terrible, and it's made that way, is beyond stupid. Like, just because something is made to be blatantly terrible on purpose does not make it free from criticism.
He never implied that. In fact, you acknowledging its stylistic choice actually puts Kablam in the right more than it does you. If Phantom is making unnecessary critiques of something that the show is intentionally going for, that would actually strengthen Kablam's point.
No, it doesn't. This reasoning is why people view postmodernism as shit. Let me explain something about postmodernism. Just because a postmodern piece tries to go for a certain stylistic choice doesn't mean they can't do it wrong. I want to strengthen Phantom Strider's point here with a good postmodern artist, Don Hertzfeldt. You may know him as that guy who did Rejected Cartoon or It's a Beautiful Day. What makes him good is that his animation is not complete garbage. It's simple, and a lot of cell gets reused in his work, sure, but it has effort put into it. Characters move coherently and have a recognizable design. 12-ounce mouse does not have that. The designs are incoherent. There are some things in the show that are literally just geometric shapes and do not take the form of a certain species or object when other things in the show does. The animation is too stiff, as the character in movement usually gets only 3 frames, and most of the time, the characters are not really moving at all. Now granted, what postmodernism usually lacks in animation makes up for in story and point. However, I don't know if 12-ounce mouse does that, and you're not giving me a full argument. Rather, you're actually proving Douglas correct. Guess that's what happens when a brain-dead cocksucker starts talking about animation.
Feels like a bunch of stoners crayoned together a bunch of pictures, then paid $10 to some teenager to splice it together in a video editor.
And now, Phantom Strider truly enters this fuckfest. You see, this is my thing with a lot of animation critics. I have animated before, I know the process of making an animation, but a lot of animation critics don't. So what happens is, rather than elaborating on their points properly, they rely on similes. Oh, this is like if my 5-year-old daughter took a shit on my paperwork! Newsflash, this does not help cartoonists. Like, at all. In fact, I'm pretty sure a lot of cartoonists fucking hate it when people do this, because they know a lot of these critics don't know what's behind an animation, such as outlining, coloring, art cleanup, positioning, balancing, focus, angling, animation cleanup, design, style, syncing, editing, exporting, finalizing, and other stuff that's complicated as fuck. I could go all day just explaining the animation process, and you know what? It's not like you can't learn about it if you're not an animator. I'm pretty sure you can simply look up a Wikipedia article about animation or something on Google for you to educate yourself. This way, you'll be able to give out advice that animators can bounce off of and maybe even inform your audience. Just saying.
I honestly should be expecting more, but to be honest, I'm not expecting much considering this is the same guy that said this was a top 5 list when it's actually a top 6 list.
Okay, quick question, Doug. How much are you willing to bet that Kablam meant to say 5 but just slipped up a bit? Nothing? Okay.
Snake. It's a pot shot. And you took it seriously. Kill me.
Brainless. Is there possibly a more brainless cartoon in existence? This cartoon is just a hyperactive splooge of screaming ducks and loud colours. Out of all the American cartoons I can think of, hell, all the cartoons, I couldn't think of a cartoon that just annoyed me more. Then why is it only at number 4? If you're saying that it's the most annoying cartoon you've ever seen, and the most brainless, I should say, then why is it only at number 4? It's pretty obvious you have an immense hatred for the show, considering you've put it on at least 3 other lists. So I think you should either stop talking about it, or at least talking about it as much, or decide on just how much you hate it. Because right now, it only sounds like you're putting it on this list to please the immense hatred that the cartoon community has for breadwinners, which is the main problem I have with his channel overall. Pretty much all of his videos just appeal to those raging cartoon nerds who hate on cartoons every day and hate on the same cartoons every day. That's pretty much all his channel appeals to. Hence why his videos are so clickbaity, and hence why most of them are top 10 worst, or sometimes top 10 best.
A bit of a spoiler warning here, but this complaint is pointless, and let me tell you why. I decided to check out Famstrider's top 10 worst cartoons, and at number 8 was Breadwinners, followed by Mr. Pickles, and later on in the countdown, we'd see Family Guy, followed by Ren Seeks Help. The choices for this list are Breadwinners for number 4, Mr. Pickles for number 3, Family Guy for number 2, and Ren Seeks Help for number 1. What's that? Consistency? Actually, no. You wanna know what you could have pointed out, Kablam? You could have pointed out how Mega Babies followed Mr. Pickles in the top 10 worst cartoons list, yet in this list, Mega Babies is lower than Mr. Pickles. But no, I'm Kablam Bandicoot 64, and I shall make the brilliant analytical point of, you keep constantly talking about this in your countdown, so it should be number 1. Newsflash, Kablam, that's not how countdowns work.
I hate to bring up Mr. Enter so much, but I feel it's relevant to this video. A lot of the same criticisms that you just levied towards Phantom Strider can be applied to you, Kablam. The only reason why you made so many videos on Mr. Enter was because you had a massive hate boner for the guy, despite the fact that numerous people told you to stop because it was completely unnecessary. What it seems like to me is that you're projecting your immense butthurt towards people massively disliking your 9,000 Mr. Enter videos towards Phantom Strider.
What? Douglas, did you even pay attention to Kablam's video? Kablam went out of his way to not mention the mysterious Mr. Enter.
That's what I mean. He just finds insane nitpicks to take out of this cartoon just to please all the Ren Seeks Help haters, because for some reason that cartoon has an immense amount of hatred for it. Granted, it might be bad, but I think enough is enough.
And yet you're saying this Mr. Enter shit is relevant? Are you fucking kidding me right now? Even if it was relevant, that still doesn't change the fact that your entire point amounts to you being an ass and assuming shit. This entire commentary section is fucked.
And second of all, his channel only appeals to those who hate on cartoons, and the same cartoons like Teen Titans Go and Breadwinners. This has got to be a fucking joke, right? That is absolute bullshit. That is 100% pure grade A bullshit. Like I mentioned before, he has plenty of lists on good cartoons, a fact that you conveniently left out of this video.
Wow, this is a good example of poor wording. And poor argument. Let's rip it apart. First things first, you interpret contradicting reasons. Haters of cartoons and haters of cartoons like Teen Titans Go are not the same thing. Nevertheless, let's go for the latter of these reasons because that's where a problem stems. TKD, did you ever consider that maybe people who share a sentiment on what cartoons they dislike also share a sentiment of what cartoons they do like? For example, typical cartoon fans who hate Teen Titans Go love Steven Universe, and Steven Universe is at the top of his best cartoons on Cartoon Network list. See what I mean? Saying this, for that point, doesn't really debunk anything.
It doesn't matter if the worst lists outweigh the best lists. Screw Attack makes countdowns and other analysis videos, yet most people still only come to their channel to watch their death battles, and the views and ratings reflect that.
Okay, this picture, right here, should not apply to the view stats that Famstrider has. All of his videos, whether it's worst or best, range from the 100,000s to the 1 millions. Take a look at this best video and this worst video. Both have pretty much the same amount of views, yet the worst one came out 1 month earlier. Hell, these 4 sets of videos right here perfectly sum up the varying views of Famstrider's channel. And the funny part is, you know which one has the most views out of the 4 here? The positive one. Now, since it does vary, there are, of course, worst videos that have near triple the amount of views than a best list that came out before it. But that's not my point. My point is you're grossly simplifying what's actually going on here to justify your false argument. If anything, Famstrider's view count could depend on whether his topic is interesting or not. Makes more sense than just saying, worst lists do better.
And I'm sorry to say, but that's pretty much all I have to say about this guy. His videos appeal to the lowest common denominator, and they pretty much just appeal to those insane cartoon nerds who have hatred for every single bad cartoon, and have immense hatred for all of those bad cartoons. I would end the video here, but I do want to discuss his #1 pick, because I do have to bring up something wrong with it.
So that's all you had to say, huh? And yet you still want to say something about his #1 segment. You know, I've gotten on to you about poor editing and poor planning in the past, Kablam, but this is just downright poor structuring of your video. And I'm sorry to say, but that's all I have to say about you. I'll address more stuff about you in my final thoughts, though.
Your attempted defense of 12-ounce mouse was incredibly weak and could be easily refuted. You skipped over number 5, and rightfully so, because it's not actually an American cartoon.
Drag, 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 drag.
But what you don't seem to understand is the reason why the animation community does not like mean characters. You see, if you have a mean character just for the sole purpose of having a mean character, then that character is unlikable, period. You know, because if you just have a mean character that's just mean and it doesn't have anything else to it, then that's not a character that audiences are going to enjoy seeing on screen. That's not a character that anyone's going to want to root for. That's a character that people are going to hate, despise, and just wish the worst on.
And the very next thing Kablam says,
the biggest question to Ren Seeks Help is, what mind could find this funny?
People who like mean-spirited humor, such as myself. Ren Seeks Help isn't perfect, but I do admit I personally got a couple laughs out of it. And the way you said that means if you like Ren Seeks Help, or if you found any humor in it, you're pretty much a psychopath.
And this is why you pay attention to the video. Idiot.
Well, I guess we're all idiots then, cause I can just play the same clip from That Kid Douglas you play right after this and say you're not paying attention to the video. Snake, all you played from Kablam Bandicoot was an argument that Douglas was ready to counter-argue and didn't have anything to do with this interjection in the first place, considering mean-spirited humor and mean-spirited characters are 2 different fucking things. This Kablam Bandicoot clip needs more than a simple pay attention. But hey, I guess rather than adding to the discussion, you'd instead choose the lazy route, right? Typical. And you know what? I tried slugging through the rest of this video, and all I got were semi-decent points, incredibly shitty points with the same problems I've already pointed out, war ripping off Ryan Rhino Mills, and a buttload of bleach to drown the misery. Just another nihilistic Snake commentary, I guess. So, I'm moving on to final thoughts, starting with Famstrider. Famstrider, your video was alright. It could have been better, but it was alright. Not really much to say. I only tackled you once in this commentary, and you were by far the best person in this fuckfest, so get a pass, for now. Just because I'm so frustrated with the other 3. That Kid Douglas, your video is exactly what I was talking about when I said in my co-op with Doodle how much nothing soul hypocrisy usually adds to the discussion. I mean, if you want to say Kablam should practice what he preaches, fine. If you want to even make a one-off pot shot at Kablam with these hypocrisy memes, fine. Hypocrisy itself doesn't add much argument-wise, but it makes for a good pot shot. As you know, Ponder and I made a pot shot based off hypocrisy in a co-op we did, but if your entire commentary is full of nothing but you saying, hey, you're making this point, well, you're no better, LOLXD, then all your commentary amounts to is nothing but fluff, whether you like it or not. I'm hoping you don't, in which case, fix it. Finally, kablam! Like I said, there was going to be a tryout with me, Reaper, and Mav on your video. However, I never got around to it. Regardless, there is something I really want to bring to your attention here, because this has been bugging me about you for a while now. I'll start with the positives, and since I haven't commentated on you since May, here's what you've improved on since then. I can hear you clearly now. You have points. They're not good points, but the points are there. You're actually doing a commentary and not some reaction video on a kid raging at Chuck E. Cheese's. That's it. Honestly, other than that, you still make awful, unentertaining commentaries that fail to provide any substantial intellectual thought, and you still refuse to listen to your critics. Now, with that, you may question why I still give a shit. Well, right at the beginning of this video, the part that Douglas didn't play, you were talking about how you got flack from satirical videos you made around being the commentary community president, and how you deleted them because of the flack.
The reason I deleted these commentary community president videos is because they were not well received, and not in the way I was intending. You see, I knew that some people wouldn't like them, but the point of them was to be satirical, like sort of parodies, particularly of Donald Trump, but more so just the 2016 election in general, especially on Trump's side of things.
Now, I think it's kind of sad that people misunderstood Kablam's videos, but I also didn't think it was necessary for Kablam to delete them. He could have just explained that the videos weren't meant to be taken seriously and keep them up. Then I realized something. Kablam always deletes his stuff when he gets under too much flack. His rant on the PC Master Race being gaming racism disappearing, his video addressing Doodle and MacBoy when they critiqued him disappearing, and even his attempt to quit commentaries and delete all of his commentaries to start food reviews, only to come back 2 weeks later reflect this. And the more I thought about it, the more I realized, yeah, there's a reason it's happening 99% of the time, Kablam. It's because your content keeps being stained by the same problems over and over and over again. And I'm not talking about just your commentaries, I'm talking about your retarded rants and your pathetic excuses for food reviews. You still have poor production values, you're still terribly unentertaining, you still repeat yourself, you still drag on shit to no end, etc, etc. Problems may vary on what type of videos you make, like making a food review off of fucking toothpaste, but other than that, all your content is equally terrible. Here's my advice. If you want to stop getting backlash on stuff like your PC Master Race rant and your commentaries, start taking criticism that'll help you. Otherwise, you might as well just get ahead of the game and delete your channel, because your reception ain't gonna get any better if you don't start taking criticism that'll help you. I'm done.
You forgot about Snake.
God damn it. Doodle! Seriously? I was trying to skip over him!
Well, being the official hit woman of Sock, I was obligated to tell you. Now, if you excuse me, I have 200 more commentaries to make. Whee!
Fucking weeaboo. Snake, it's pretty obvious at this point that I thought you were the most egregious one in this entire thing. And the funny thing is, it's not even because I hate you the most. Your commentaries are just that terrible. Biggest problem with this commentary, right now, it's boring. Throughout watching your video, I felt like wanting to rage, yet at the same time, wanting to fall asleep. You've managed to hit the perfect combination of forgettable and annoying, and it drives me insane. Lucky for you, I know why this is the case, and if you haven't discredited me already, then you ought to sit down and listen. You know how your whole appeal is supposed to be that you're edgy and provocative? Well, I think in order to do that, you have to actually be edgy and provocative. If all edginess is to you is throwing insults and a temper tantrum like this...
Alright, I get it! Kablam is a hypocrite! You've said this point like 6 times by now! Just stop fucking talking already!
Yeah, I'm sorry. Your appeal is probably not gonna last for very long. What cements Snake into boredom, however, is how he makes some of the safest, most uninteresting points possible. That's the thing with Snake. He tries to dodge hate, rather than learn from it, by playing it safe and taking from other commentators. Ryan should know, since Snake ripped him off 3 times in this commentary.
Wow, I actually really hate you right now. I especially hate the fact that you're acting like a massive fucking spurglord and trying to make this into a personal issue.
Wow, I really don't like all of you right now. I especially hate that the interviewers are constantly pushing someone to listen to a song, and when the person, who is like 13 from the screenshot you showed earlier, blows up at them, she's laughed at.
Same tone, same inflection, same point being made. And yeah, I know, I call out a lot of people for ripping other people off, and maybe I am too hard when it comes to that area, but god damn does Snake deserve his criticism, because making safe points and ripping other people off do not work with the edginess he's trying to convey. And no, it's not the fact that he couldn't bring up anything but safe points towards this video because, well, Now you know why I decided to cover everybody this time around. What really tops all of this though, is that most of the time Snake's safe points weren't even legitimate, like in a part I skipped when he told Douglas hypocrisy doesn't make someone wrong, even though Douglas never said that.
I find it funny that you bring this up because a lot of those same criticisms could be applied to you.
Is this all this video is gonna be? Just constantly pulling the hypocrisy card? You do realize hypocrisy doesn't invalidate a point, right?
So what's my advice? Well, I have two. Either A, make legitimate points, or B, come up with a different persona for yourself. Simple as that. I think I gave you enough of a starting ground with its commentary for the first one, and while you're at it, stop thinking I'm trying to start some sort of war with you by doing a commentary on you. I just want you to get it already. I do not need more commentaries like this, thank you very much. Before I retire, I have one final message to give. To Blaze of Arcana. Blaze, I don't care if the tri-op I was in was cancelled or not, you really didn't think I could have taken from that somehow? Yeah, do me a favor and stop being a plagiarizing little shit, because stuff like that is what gets you kicked out of college and blacklisted. Also, I'm sorry for those final thoughts on the co-op I made on you. They were actually terrible. Please disregard them. Well, that was the most exhausting commentary I've ever made. I think I'm gonna get my bleach and pass out. Maybe I'll finally die for once.